Welcome, guys. Welcome to this little workshop today. We're excited that you're here, that you've joined us for this workshop. Today we're going to be talking about messages that you're sending. An important part of leadership and communicating with people is also recognizing some of the nonverbal communication signs or signals that we're sending to people as well. So my name is Julena Bonner, and I'm here today with Bret Crane and Alex Romney, and we're professors in the management department, and we teach a leadership class here on campus. And we're excited to be here today and talk to you about some nonverbal communication cues and communicating trust to people around us. So I want to start out today by providing an illustration to you. We're going to watch a video clip from a TV show you may have heard of, maybe. It's something's happened. Okay. It's the British version of The Office. And this is a performance appraisal. So I want you to, as you're watching this video, I want you to try and notice what are some of the nonverbal communication cues the employee is sending, as well as the supervisor. Okay? And I might stop it in between or here and there to ask you what you feel like they're communicating nonverbally. Okay? Maybe take some notes.
Under strengths, you've just put accounts.
Yeah.
That's your job, though. That's just. No, Keith. I was sort of looking for your skills within your job. So, is there anything else you could have put there? Oh, okay. Under weaknesses, you've put eczema.
What's the sense or the feeling you get from him? Yeah.
Well, first of all, he didn't even finish the job application. So it looks like he doesn't even care because
Right.
he's trying to do the application now.
Good. So he didn't finish the application. You're kind of getting the sense that he doesn't care. Anything else? Yeah.
He doesn't seem interested just by the way he's sitting in his chair, his facial expressions.
Good. So he's not interested. You're not getting the feeling that he's interested. Did you have something?
Just building off of that, also the whole chewing gum, just not maintaining eye contact during the whole interview. He's just like, whatever.
Yeah. He could care less about being there. Good. So you're picking up on some of these cues. Now, try and pick up on some of the cues that the supervisor is giving off.
Adequate training to use your computer effectively.
Keith. Right, you've left this section completely blank, Keith. You haven't done the Q&A.
I thought that you filled that in.
No. This is aimed at you. Look, to what extent do you believe that you have the skills and knowledge to perform your job effectively? And then you just tick one of the boxes. Not at all, to some extent, very much so, don't know. What would you tick?
Don't know.
Okay. Question 2. Do you feel you have received adequate training to use your computer effectively?
What are the options?
They're always the same. Always the same. Not at all, to some extent, very much so, don't know.
Don't know.
Don't know again, okay? Do you feel you are given the flexibility to decide how best to accomplish your goals? Do you want the options again?
Yeah.
Not at all. To some extent, always the same. Very much so, don't know. If don't know wasn't there, what would you put?
Well, the options.
Not at all. To some extent, very much so, don't know.
Very much so.
Do you remember what the question was?
No.
Okay. We're going to leave that there.
What kind of cues do you feel like the supervisor's giving off?
He's getting really annoyed.
Okay, he's kind of showing some annoyance here. Yeah. Anything else?
There's withdrawal from him as well, because instead of trying to probe him and be like, well, why don't you know, or follow up with him, he just keeps going through the questions.
Mm-hmm. He's not following up. He doesn't care, right? Right. He's kind of tense too. You can see that frustration building in him, and he's like tense. Right. All right. So this is just an illustration of some nonverbal communication cues that we perhaps illustrate And it's important to understand what these nonverbal communication cues are that we're giving off, because as you guys are getting ready to go out and look for jobs, the hope is that you'll get a job, right? So you want to be aware what it is that you're portraying, but you also want to be able to read the communication cues of people that you're working with or the person that you're interviewing with, so you can kind of understand better how to communicate and present yourself in an effective manner.
All right, thanks, Julena. I'm Bret Crane, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the science behind the cues that you're sending. Sometimes, unbeknownst to you, what are you communicating to other people? We know that communication is a very little part of, words are a very little part of the communication that we use. Some have estimated it, words, the content is only 7%. So what constitutes the majority of what we're communicating? You saw a little bit of that in the episode. Over half of what we communicate is through our nonverbal communication. So facial expressions, posture, gestures, and these are powerful cues for people that we interact, for people to make sense of who we are and determine whether or not they trust us. So if communication is mostly nonverbal, how do I, as someone who is looking to be employed, someone who's looking to be successful in the workforce, how do I communicate things like, I can be trusted with this job? What types of cues are people picking up on when they interview me? And they say, you know what, Andrew, I trust you with this position. I'm going to extend you a full-time offer. How can I be trusted with a promotion? So you're interacting with managers, you're interacting with other people at work. What type of cues are you sending so that people trust you with additional responsibility? And then how can you be trusted to lead? What are you communicating non-verbally to other people which would lead them to believe that, yeah, this person is worth following? So in order to be able to answer these questions, you have to understand a little bit about the brain and how the brain works. The brain is amazing. The more I learn about it, the more awestruck I am by this amazing gift that we have. Essentially, the brain is comprised of two parts. Right? We have our conscious brain, we have our subconscious part. And consider the relative size of the two. For example, your subconscious can process 11 million bytes per second. Now think about that. Whereas your conscious mind can only process 40 bytes per second. Right? So a more ample, a more appropriate description of the brain might be this, where your conscious is just that little piece above the surface, you know, the tip of the iceberg, and your subconscious is everything below the surface. So what is your subconscious doing? Well, it's the workhorse that is constantly analyzing your environment, taking in your environment and doing things that are mission critical for example, to keep you alive and to keep you safe. So things like sensing danger, things like making sure that you're breathing, and things like making sure that you put yourself in a position where you are surrounded by people that won't hurt you, but would actually help you. And so evolutionary psychologists believe that our brain was wired this way early on in our existence when things were less civilized. We're walking around and you don't know if someone's going to hurt you or if someone's going to help you, and your life really depends on that. So our brain became wired to ask constantly two questions whenever we interact with someone. The first question is, what are this person's intentions toward me? Is this someone that's going to help me, someone that's going to hurt me? And then secondly, is he or she capable of acting on those intentions? Are they competent? Are they strong? And what's interesting here is about 90% of all of our first impressions, of all of our impressions, can be explained by answering these two questions. Think about that. The first impression that you make on someone else, 90% of the content of that impression comes down to answering these two simple questions. And so we continue to answer these questions today. Whenever we meet a doctor, maybe we're getting an opinion on something that's wrong with us, we want to know, is this someone that has our interest at heart? And is this someone that's going to be able to effectively execute on whatever they're prescribing? We meet someone maybe that we're dating. Is this someone like me or doesn't like me? And is this someone that's willing to execute on whatever we're about here? And in interviewing, right? Is this someone that can be a part of our team, that's going to be able to step up and make us successful? And can they execute? Are they capable and strong? So what happens here is when you take these two answers and you overlay them, something interesting happens, because depending on how we answer that question determines how we feel about these people. And so research has demonstrated that if we answer the first question that the person is cold, right, they're warm, they're unfeeling, they're not friendly, but they are also not competent, we have contempt for them. Our response is, we don't like you. We have a strong distaste for you. Man, do something with your life. At least be friendly or competent, but don't just sit there and do nothing. If we're low on competence and we're high on warmth, so we're warm, friendly, but we don't have competence, we treat these people with a little bit of pity. Now, I really like you. I really want to like you. But again, pick something and be good at it. Right? Show me something that you're exceptional at. For the other end of the spectrum, when people are high on competence but low on warmth, we tend to envy these people. We see them sometimes as a threat. These are powerful individuals, but we're not really sure what their intention is to us, so we treat them as kind of arm's length. We keep them at a distance. Where we want to be as individuals and leaders and job candidates is up in the upper right-hand quadrant, perceived both as warm and competent. That's our response to those people is we admire them. We want to be like them. And so it's easy for us to follow them. These are the type of people that we want on our team. These are the people that we want to promote. These are the people that we want to hire. So the question is, how then do we convey these things? And if we want to be up here, what's the mechanisms, nonverbal mechanisms that we have to be able to communicate so that people admire us? And so we'll start with gestures and posture. Right? There was an individual who was hired to a team and found out quickly that her team didn't like her. And her team actually went to the manager 2 weeks later after she was hired and said, we can't work this person. They're resistant, they're adversarial, they don't get along with us. And the wise manager said, rather than talking to the employee directly, said, all right, let me observe them firsthand. And so this manager went and observed the interaction in a team meeting. And this is how the person sat. Arms folded, leaning back. Now, what am I conveying here? What am I communicating to the rest of the team? You're closed, right? I'm a little bit resistant. I'm protecting myself because I don't agree with what's going on here. And unbeknownst to that person, that's exactly what they were communicating, whereas the content of their speech wasn't that much different than the rest of the team members. And yet that subtle difference changed how the rest of the team viewed this person. So what are your gestures? What's your posture saying about you? How do you convey warmth? How do you convey to someone that you have good intentions? Well, you nod, you open your hands. Think back to evolutionary psychology. If I have my hands like this in an interview, they're down on the table. What does this say?
You're nervous?
Nervous?
Yeah.
Maybe a little distrusting? What if they're underneath here, underneath the desk? That I'm hiding something. Right? The best way to communicate warmth in an interview is to have your hands open. Look, I don't have any weapons. I'm not here to harm you. Open gestures, right? You see that with leaders who talk. They tend to have their arms open, embracing, almost in a hug. If you want to go for power, use the steeple. Right? This shows a little bit of power and then return to kind of the open gestures. Yeah?
How can you do that for a whole interview without kind of looking closely, like always moving your arms around, like jazz hands almost? Like, is there like a pretty neutral position you can put your hands in where you're not always having to have them off the table?
So it's a great question. You don't want to be you don't want to be stage acting, right? You don't want people to see as you're overly dramatic. It's something that you have to practice, right? You have to sit down with someone else, maybe in the mirror, and look at your hand movement to make sure that it's not forced, that it's not a distraction, but that it's natural, right? You're not always going to go like this. This is not always, but sometimes you're going to break it up a little bit. Sometimes you're going to put your hands in a different position. It's just something that you have to play with until you feel comfortable with what you're doing. Good question. How do you convey competence? Sometimes our electronic devices get in the way of this because we're looking down the whole time. We are, we're looking at a screen, we're checking our phone, and then we're slouched. Right? This does not convey competence. Right? Stand up, military pose, chest out, head up. This conveys competence. In fact, there's some research, interesting research about power poses that you may be familiar with. Essentially, the experiment was done where they took a couple group of individuals. One group of individuals was not asked to pose. Another group of individuals was asked to do a power pose. Again, think of Superman, Superwoman, your favorite superhero. And what happened was not only did it convey competence, but it built power within them. It built power to be able to perform better. Power poses can increase your testosterone. It can decrease your amounts of cortisol, which is a hormone associated with lower status, submissive behaviors. And so it ultimately improves your performance. These people that were asked to power pose just for a minute before they went into an interview-like situation performed better and were more likely to be selected for the job. That's even accounting for the content of their communication. They're more persuasive, more energetic. I was talking to my daughter about this the other day, who plays volleyball, and she said her coach actually makes them do power poses if they're frustrated or down in the middle of a game. So next time I'm going to look for her doing the power pose. Stand up a minute. Let's see your best power pose. All right, shoulders up. Hands on your hips. They can be down like this. All right, you feeling the power already swelling within you? Next time you're in a stressful situation, maybe it's not even an interview, consider taking a moment to do a power pose and see if that helps. All right, please sit down. So our posture and gestures can communicate our competence and our warmth. Our facial expressions can also communicate our competence and our warmth. Even the most stoic people have these tells. We can see these flashes where people tend to communicate what they're thinking. And people have studied this by looking at things like the mind and the eyes test, where you can discern and pick up on how people are feeling by just looking at the small proximity around people's eyes. So let's test this. Let's see if this actually works and how good you are. So what of these emotions, what are you picking up? What cue is this person sending? Is it playful, comforting, irritated, or bored? What do you think? Playful. And you'd be right. Is this high warmth or high competence? It's warmth, right? You're expressing your warmth through your facial expressions. What about this one? Irritated, sarcastic, worried, or friendly? Worried. What does this say about competence or warmth? What is this telling you about? Which dimension does this focus on? Your competence, right? You're expressing a lack of confidence because you're worried, you're uncertain, you're unsure. What about this one? Desire. This explains why some of us struggle with dating. We have a hard time picking up on some of these important cues. Now, is this warmth or competence? Warmth. Right? This person has positive intentions towards you. And so it's incredible that we can actually see warmth and competence in just this small region of someone's eyes. And this is your subconscious picking up on these cues. It's such an important phenomenon that companies are willing to pay more money for people who actually have this ability. There's a recent study by a co-author of mine that looked at social recognition or emotional recognition and salary. And they found that people had higher abilities to recognize emotion got paid more across numerous companies, across different levels of companies, even controlling for how long they worked, how hard they worked, the position they held, where they graduated from. Why is that? Because people who have this ability also have political adeptness. They understand how to navigate an organization politically because they can read up on cues from people, and which allows them to have better interpersonal facilitation. So companies are willing to pay a premium for these things. These things are abilities that we can learn and develop and practice, which we'll get to in just a little bit. So there's important implications for us as individuals. If we can actually send and receive these subconscious cues from other people, how can we make sure we're sending the right cues when we're in an interview, when we're in an important situation? What types of emotions should we be conveying? We can't walk into an interview and be concerned. We can't have self-doubt. That can be one of the most, biggest things that undermines our ability to convey competence. So we have to have a certain level of preparation, certain level of confidence going into an interview. Otherwise, people will see that. Sometimes we could learn a few things from method actors who actually think about what's the emotion they need to display, think about the last time they felt that emotion, and then reconjure up that experience until they start to feel those emotions. It also has important implications for how we read other people's cues. So we pick up on the emotions that the other person is sending. We like people who are like us. So to the extent that we can mirror other people's nonverbal cues, they are more likely to feel warmth from us. So if they're standing like this, we stand like this. Right? If their hands are in our pockets, maybe the most appropriate thing is to stand with our hands in our pockets. As an aside, my wife is amazing at this when it comes to phone communication. I can tell instantaneously who she's talking to by the way she talks and the way she picks up the phone. The words she uses, the energy, the tone, almost perfect. It's like a chameleon. She mirrors exactly the person that is on the other end of the phone, whether it's a friend, her sister, or mother. She has the ability to adapt for the situation. That's what I'm suggesting here that we do in our posture, in our communication, in our energy. If we can mirror what the other person is doing, they tend to like us more. So the question is, which is better? What do I need to focus on? I'm really good at warmth, but not so good at competence, or I'm really good at competence, or I'm not so good at warmth. Which do you think takes precedent?
What you want out of it.
Okay, depends on the outcome. All right. Other thoughts? Yeah.
I would say warmth, because competence can always be changed, and you can always become more competent and learn.
Yeah.
But somebody's personality and how friendly they are, that's a lot harder.
Okay. Good. And the research would suggest that you're right. That essentially, biologically, we pick up on warmth cues more quickly than we do on competence cues. Think about it. It's more important, back to the caveman analogy, that I figure out whether your intentions are to hurt me or to help me than it is to know whether you're really good at making a fire or you're really good at hunting down whatever. Right? It begins with your initial intentions. Such that there was a recent study that was done where they sampled 51,000 managers, and they found that only 27, not 27%, were simultaneously in the lowest quartile for warmth and in the highest quartile for effective leadership. So that means you have a 1 in 2,000 chance of being disliked as a leader and also being perceived as effective. So start with warmth. You connect with other people, and then you show your competence over time. And so I think it may come relatively naturally for this group, because most people at Utah State come because of kind of the culture of communality, collegiality. But for point of emphasis, I want you to consider additional tactics where you might be able to lead and build up your warmth. So one thing to consider is to make it personal. Right? To actually start off an interaction with someone by sharing something about yourself. Starting off an interview. When people say, tell me about yourself, consider sharing something that might be relevant, that might be personal, that tends to humanize other people and to see you as someone who's friendly and warm. Flatter. We like people and we feel people are friendly if they flatter us. And one of the best ways to flatter people is to give them your undivided attention. There's a manager who, when someone comes in the room, literally takes the phone off the hook just to symbolize you have my undivided attention. How can you show undivided attention to the people that you're interacting with rather than checking buzzes on your phone, rather than looking for a conversation maybe that you're not a part of? How can you do to show complete and total interest in the person you're interacting with? Agree first. Again, we like people who are like us, who have a similar worldview. We may disagree with them, but start with something that you can agree on and then move from there. Ask for help. We underestimate this, but we like people who we help. We're investing in them. We also tend to see them as warmer individuals because they're open to help. And then humor. If you can tell someone, if you can get someone to laugh, you can tell them anything. Don't take yourself too seriously. Don't be afraid to interject a little bit of humor. Sometimes self-deprecating humor is appropriate to show warmth. But these are just a few things to consider, strategies to consider on how to lead with warmth and then show competence over time. So if you're aware of these verbal cues, of how you're implicitly picking up and sending these cues, you can better understand how to convey the things that build trust in you. And you can also read and respond to the cues of others. One of the best ways to show warmth is to show empathy. And we can only show empathy if we understand what the person is experiencing. So social recognition, emotional recognition enables our ability to empathize with others. So with that, we're going to give you a chance to practice these ideas. Think about how you could put competence and warmth into practice in the setting of an interview. Alex? Yeah.
Okay, so before we get into this, I was thinking as Julena and Bret were talking that how many of us have a resume? Raise your hand if you have a resume. Everybody's got a resume, right? Think about how much time have you spent on your resume? How much time? You go to classes and workshops about how to change and modify and create an effective resume, right? So in a way, what we're saying today and what Bret has just presented to you is that you are a resume. That in a way, how warm and competent you are in your interpersonal interactions, that is a message in and of itself. And that message often can be even more powerful than what's written on your hard copy resume that you hand out to potential employers. So you are a message. So in order to help deepen this and so you can leave today really owning this, we want to have you practice this. So what we're going to do, we're going to hand out these roll sheets. So Bret and Julena, if you could help. And essentially what you're going to do, these got all mixed up though. Let's see. Okay, so there's two roles. You're either going to get the role of a manager or the role of a job candidate. And this scenario, the context of this is at Vivint. How many of you know what Vivint is, the company? Right, all of us. So if you don't know, Vivint is a Utah company. It specializes in smart home technology. Okay, so you're going to imagine and you're going to engage in a role play that you are either the manager or a job candidate applying for a sales manager job. Okay? And our hope is that in doing this, you can apply some of these things that Bret has just talked to you about. So the way this is going to work, you're going to get a roll sheet, and then you need to partner up. You need to pair up with somebody. We've had several people leave, but before those people left, we had 28. I don't know, I think maybe we have 26 now. So we'll probably have 13 pairs. So you're going to pair up with somebody, and we'll time you. You're then going to have 3 minutes to read your roll sheet. Okay? And then after that 3 minutes, we're going to give you 4 minutes to engage in this interview. And then after that, you're going to have 3 minutes to give your partner feedback on their warmth and competence. And then we'll switch roles. Okay? Does that make sense? And I'll be the timekeeper. So first, everybody pair up. Make sure you got a partner. And you need somebody, if you have a manager roll sheet. Okay?
So they only get one, right?
Yeah, to start off, yes.
Yeah.
So if you have a manager role sheet, you need to pair up with somebody who has a job candidate role sheet. So raise your hand if you have a job candidate role sheet. Okay? So everybody who doesn't, you need to be coming and pairing up with somebody over here. Okay? So go ahead and partner up. Okay? So this is what I want you to do. You need to read your role sheet first. Okay? So take 2 minutes, read your role sheet, and then after you've read it, feel free if you want to, you can make notes, and then we'll begin. And I'll tell you when we begin. Okay? So you got 2 minutes. Read your role sheet. As Andrew's demonstrating, feel free to make power poses if you're the candidate before we begin. Okay? You got like 10 seconds to do a power pose now if you want. Okay, so now you're going to engage in the interview. Okay, I know this feels a little awkward, but if you can buy into it, you'll learn more. Okay, so you got 4 minutes. The interviews begin. Okay, time's up. Now it's time, and it doesn't matter if you didn't get through all the questions. Now it's time to give the candidate feedback. How warm did they come across? And did you get some sense of competence displayed from them? Okay? So go ahead and give them feedback, and then we'll all come back together and debrief. Okay? So we're out of time. So what I want to do now, we're going to debrief. Okay? So think back. Raise your hand if you were in the manager position. Okay? So as the manager, what did the job candidate do to convey warmth and competence that you noticed in your interview? What did they do?
Eye contact.
Okay, so good eye contact.
Very good.
Okay, good. What else?
Just that, just the facial expressions they were using is very clear they were engaged in a
Yeah.
conversation.
Okay,
Interested.
so nods, eye contact again. Okay, maybe some mimicking.
My candidate brought in a lot of confidence and competence when she was like, well, I've worked with Vivid before and I've managed teams. And she was like, here's some numbers that I've done, that she was very confident
Okay.
in her history with the company.
Great. So how did that, as the managers, how did that affect your intentions towards the candidate and your behavior towards them? Did some of you have the sense that, I'd hire this person? Did any of you have that sense? Maybe? Okay. You did? Is she your boss? Andrew, is she your boss? No, she's not your boss. Okay. Okay, so let's do the reverse. How about job candidates? Raise your hand. Okay? How did the manager convey warmth and confidence? Or did they?
Even the second question is kind of more of a negative one.
Yeah.
But he asked it with a smile on his face, just like the first one. So he's like, tell me about your accomplishments. And I told him, and then he's like, now tell me about a time where you had like a problem, but he was still, like, he didn't
Had a smile.
send me about it, like, when did you mess up?
Okay.
It was better.
So what was really interesting, Brett and I were looking around, and we could pick, without even looking at what role sheet you had, who was the manager and who was the job candidate. So every manager was leaning back, kind of set back like this, or you didn't. Maybe you weren't folding your arms, but you're definitely kind of leaning back, right? And every job candidate was kind of, more on edge, kind of on the edge of their sheet a little bit, right? So it's interesting. This is powerful stuff. So you really see this. How about what else? Anything else stand out to you in the interviews that you noticed?
With the problem, I gave a kind of vague response, and so Barbara followed up with a follow-up question, and that showed me that she was engaged and wanted to know more.
Okay, great. So this is one interesting thing. As I was thinking about this, often we think about interviews, or actually, it's not even necessarily just interviews, but think of all social interactions you have. We often think of our social interactions as isolated events, right? Oh man, I'm going to have this interview. It's done. what's interesting to me is that all of these are actually interdependent episodes. And the way that is what we learned from Amy Cuddy's work, is that how warm and competent you are affects not only others' perceptions of you, but it affects your perceptions of yourself, right? And that's going to affect how you behave in the next social interaction. And it's this cycle. And what's going to happen to the job, the manager who's interviewing you? They're going to remember how warm and competent you were. And that reputation is going to follow you. Okay? So I hope you'll see that these are connected events. Right? And one interview, one social interaction is going to affect the next. We're almost out of time. There's a few takeaways that we hope you take away from today's session. Number one, warmth and competence directly affect how we influence each other. And therefore, how warm and competent you are in social interactions affects your ability to lead. Because we know, as Bret talked about early, leadership is facilitated by trust. And when we convey warmth and competence, we're conveying to others that they can trust us. Because it's going to make them willing to trust us because of that warmth. And it's going to give them confidence in our ability to lead. Okay? Also, when we think about these things, they're mutually reinforcing. How warm we are, how competent we are, affect each other. So think about a time when you felt competent, when you felt powerful. That affected how authentic you could behave towards others, and therefore how warm you came across. So these are mutually reinforcing concepts. Okay? And lastly, all of us probably aren't as warm and competent as we want to be. Right? But the great thing about these characteristics is we can change, we can develop. Every time you practice being more warm and more competent in your social interactions, you're going to get better. And therefore, you're going to increase in your ability to lead. So we hope you can remember these things and try to apply them in your own life so you can help influence and make the world a better place. So thanks so much for coming. We've left you enough time so you can go and hopefully see Scott Anderson. But thank you.